Soulmask by no means is an easy game, but there are a couple of tips and tricks I've learned through my almost 600 hours of gameplay now that will wildly benefit you. A few of these things you probably already know, especially if you've been playing for a while, but if you're a beginning player, a lot of these things are going to be incredibly beneficial because I still find people who have a couple of hundred hours under their belt that don't know some of these things. Starting off with some of the ones that you probably do know and some of the most obvious but most important also, you can upgrade your fireplaces and stuff very easily by just selecting them and upgrading them so you don't have to move them, because when you move them you can cause periods of decay in your base. But if you have a follower assigned to tend them, they will pop stuff inside and go around with a repair hammer and repair stuff as long as you have the repair materials. Speaking of that, just quickly though, the harder the area you live in, the more likely you are to generate a higher fever and the people won't like you as much. So you need a higher grade campfire, the higher grade area you're in bonfire. So we have a steel bonfire. It uses a lot more fuel, but our fever does go up a lot slower at some of them. This one's going to get raided any time now. And you're less likely to just have random invasions along the way. You can also set up patrol routes with little patrols that you can make at your craftsman bench. Lay them around, come to this area under J, and you can set up patrols to wander around. They will get tired and eventually go rest in a bed, so don't worry about that, as long as they have access to food in a fridge or box or a table. And a bit of a varied diet is always beneficial. I like to feed them a lot of potatoes because it gives them a lot of satiety, and same with things like the staple corn. Fish soup is a favorite of theirs. It's a lot of water, so that's nice. And yeah, I just give them a bunch of different stuff. Cigarettes, so they always have some little bit of morale and stuff going up. Alcohol for my alcoholics, you get the idea. If you have your followers set up to do various different tasks for you, which I highly recommend because they're a lot more efficient at it than yourself, more than most likely. Although we do have slightly better characters now. As long as they have access to tools and the designated area, this one apparently no longer exists. I do believe it got destroyed during one of my last invasions, and we haven't replaced it yet, but I can do that. And then you can always duplicate it and change it very easily from here to something else like the logging yard, etc. Press save if you want to save it. That's really easy. If you don't have access to things like the logging yard yet, you can just set up various different markers, like these custom markers, and then get them to wander around there, like if they're close by, and then they'll go around in that area. But do be warned, if you're in a higher grade area, the NPCs will send out the patrols occasionally, and they can capture your followers and take them back to get sacrificed if you don't rescue them. So that's why we have a giant wall around our base. Even though we play on PvE, this is to keep the bad guys out, and we have patrols for that reason. They'll attack everyone, and yeah. But as long as your thralls have access to tools, and if the guy assigned to the fireplace has access to a repair hammer, they will go about and do their jobs. Repair hammers are another awesome tip if you yourself just want to use one. So I want to move this chair. I can repair it quite easily with left click. I can dismantle it. I can relocate it, which is a lot easier than holding E on it and pressing relocate, because you have to wait for that whole timer. It's incredibly handy also to retrieve buildings, so we love that. There's no upgrade button, which is wildly unfortunate. You still do have to hold E to upgrade and upgrade that's highest. There are a couple ways to transfer into boxes. You can double click, but you can also press Q, which is much quicker. You'd be surprised the amount of people that don't do that still. Even me, myself, I still like double click on occasion. If you want to add all into a box, you can simply press G and it will add all in, or you press T and it will take all out. If you don't want to add certain things in there, press Z and that will keep them as a favorite until you die, essentially, or until they fix that. And that will also result in them staying at the top of your hotbar. Same with the building menu. I have campfires favorited in my actual crafting hotbar over here. So because I can also craft them over here, they are now at the top over here, which is a little bit annoying because I don't ever craft them in here. I usually craft them when I'm out and about and need a respawn point. But there's one way to get around the lack of folders if you craft stuff more often than others. This doesn't go away even when you die if it's favorited in your crafting benches. Only the stuff in your inventory you'll have to refavorite. When swapping between either a follower or one of these wooden man design decoration dudes. Don't forget you can press these guys in the middle and quick exchange all of your stuff, and they are now wearing my stuff and I'm wearing his stuff. Terrible example because it looks exactly the same, but it is a quick little way to re-kit yourself or transfer between followers if you have them going around with you and you want to use one for a particular activity. Say you have one that's better at mining and some that are better at fighting, or you're leveling up one, but they're not so good at looking after themselves, so you want to be in control of them, but then when you're out and about, you get the idea. It's really easy to just do that, and say you don't want some of it, then you don't get some of the things. Also, low-key, this ancient bone top is one of the best ones. Ancient leather armor, rather. I love it. You can get that at this dungeon here. Pretty easy to do. You need yellow crystal to do that. As you can see, I have a vast array of different colored and different skilled, like I've got a novice one here. She actually happens to be my best at mining, which is unfortunate because sometimes you don't want to knock out every single thing, but you should. It doesn't affect much apart from like the limit of morale and HP and damage and stuff they do. So for a crafter, it's no biggie to go for a novice. And you do have a greater chance at getting these type of armors at the skilled and master ones, but I'm pretty sure you can get them off novices too. But yeah, we've only got them off skilled and masters. So Brian here, he is yellow grade, so he's pretty decent when it comes to stats, but he has a bunch of red things anyway, so that is going to happen. But every 5 levels you get a chance to lose a red perk, and every 10 levels you get a chance to get a green perk, so that's really fun. But he's got awesome skills, even though he's a novice. 122 blade, 115 spear, only 98 shield, and 103 gauntlet, which is unfortunate because he does have the gauntlet damage increase. Would have been cool if he got the blade increase, but that'll happen. You can keep farming them, get rid of them, etc. Basically, the whole point of this is knock out everything, and you can place them in a bed to make them tame quicker, and you can use the beds at the barracks as well, especially if you go there somewhere in the morning, kill everything. That way they won't respawn until midnight, and usually when you leave the place, but sometimes if you get far enough away from a certain end in the big barracks, they can start respawning. Pop them in the bed, give them some liquid food, like those fish soups are really good. You can also feed them juice, which gives them a little bit of satiety, and things like stasis soup. In the jars and the barrels, you can find soups and stasis soup and stuff to feed them if you haven't brought any and you do happen to want to tame some dudes. And you can simply dismiss them there down the bottom if they don't happen to have anything you like. This guy we keep because he's fairly decent in a bunch of different stuff. Even though weaving is his main perk, he is not too bad at a bunch of other things. So if we happen to have a mass die-off of things, we still have high level guys. Another trick to help with them not dying is setting their behavior settings and having their auto eating and auto drinking a little bit higher. If you are making things like the fish soup and the potatoes for them, should be pretty good. Sometimes with these newer dudes, I haven't set them up a little bit higher. I usually do like 75 to 80, something like that. We did have a mass die-off and I've been incredibly paranoid since. You can also do the same with your animals. And if you really desire, you can put food straight in their pocket. And you can also, since a recent update, have ice. Go through and favorite all this again before I forget. Don't want to favorite the shit meat. But yeah, you can put ice in your inventory and their inventory, and that's going to give you increased time on your food. You unfortunately cannot put any in the table, but you can put it in boxes and you can put it in the actual crafting benches. So I have some in here because we often have fruit in here ready for them to auto craft. You can put it in your feeding troughs, especially if you have carnivore animals and you're not making the fancy meat that doesn't decay. You can also put it in things like your breeding farm and your granaries. I don't have any in here either. Put some in there. You can also eat ice if you're going to a really hot place like the volcano, although most of the place isn't too hot if you're wearing heat proof mods, to be honest. Same with the cold, you can in fact eat some chilies and will stack with a heat buff. Although if you are able, it is much better to make hot cacao, but as you can steal the chilies from different barbarian barracks, it's a little bit easier to come by to get your ice first up. And excitant is incredibly beneficial too because it stops frostbite damage and it makes you move quicker. Also, you're going to get really tired if there's any stat draining effects. So radiation, the cold, poison, it makes your morale go down heaps quicker. So smoking things like cigarettes, drinking a wine, and then having the excitant and the essential oils, although they're way later game, can really benefit your life. Bathtubs are really good because your followers like sitting in them. They add 400 comfort, and once you get to high comfort levels, you, well, actually even comfort level 1, which is just basically an enclosed house with a fire, you will start getting XP boosts. That XP affects this, so things like quinoa porridge, which I don't have any on me at the moment, but the various different quinoa foods are good for XP gain as well, and the higher up you are in level, the more points you have to spend, etc. It won't affect your awareness strength, but it does also give you some carry weight increase. Carry weight is usually affected by strength, but you can also eat things like fried potatoes and different types of potato foods to get that carry weight up also if you have low strength, if you're a shooty guy or whatever. But because I have comfort level 8, I have 160 XP gain percent and a max of 40 load, which is pretty nice. Getting all the heads off the elite animals is a decent way to get that up. When you start defeating things like the bosses, this is from the Berserk Frog, and then this is from the Frog of Doom. You can get some fun statues. The llama statue adds a bunch. I think they do. They like to sit down on the chairs, although some of them still sit on the floor because they're silly alleys. The bed will add some comfort level, and you can also rest on that. That will get your morale up much quicker than in the bathtub, but all these dudes will like to sit in there also. Yeah, the more heads you have and horns, the better and higher your comfort will get. Unfortunately, it is kind of almost locked behind the bosses too. Like, I could put out 50 of these things and maybe get to comfort 9, but if I am to complete the Mammoth of Doom, for instance, that will definitely up my stuff a lot. And the Gold Frog adds 2000 comfort, for instance. The higher level up your bonfire is, that will also add some comfort. So that's another reason to level up your bonfire, because my one out here only has 500, and if that you lower, etc., you get it. You can eventually make some pretty snazzy snatches, them guys. So definitely worth making those when you have enough resources. So as you've seen before, I have a lot of guys in a lot of gardens over there, and they're growing a lot of stuff, so I need to use some of that stuff. They grow aloe for aloe essence, they grow cashews and papaya for the plant essence, and we also grow tomatoes and usually guavas, but sometimes I don't use guavas. Apparently I'm not using guavas at the moment, for the acidic fluid. There are a couple of ways to make things. With recent updates, we now have the ability to see how much of everything we have somewhere, which is really nice via control of the person doing it. We simply press F and it will pull forth all of the stuff, craft, well, enough for a bit of crafting, and then it'll pull forth more, which is nice. But if you don't want to do it and you don't want to be in control of the bench, you can simply press D and they'll go fetch it, whoever's in control of the bench. If you don't want them to make the 11 hours worth of poison, because that's just far too long for them to be standing at one job, and maybe they're this weapon guy and they need to make weapons occasionally, there's a couple of things that you can do about it. You can set it to a much lower level, so I maybe want them to make 189, which is a very reasonable amount. It's half an hour. We press this little cog over here, and I maybe want them to make it every 5 hours. I press save. They will then come over and every 5 hours start crafting this, and then I want them to make some antidotes, but I want them to do that, make 37. I want them to do that every 6 hours. We'll press save, and let's make some premium poison, but I want them to make that every 4 hours. They will eventually cycle through it, but it is best if you put it in an order like so. So 4, 5, 6. They do get to it a little bit quicker. They will rejumble it eventually if they haven't started crafting it, or if you happen to not have the required resources. You can also set them to not take stuff out of the bench, which is really nice, especially if you don't have all your boxes set up. But it's pretty easy to set your boxes up with L and have them not store various things in this box, so they'll automatically store it in this box, which is our shittest box but full of some of our fanciest stuff. They also will not take from this box. They will simply put stuff in, and only certain things. So they won't use up all of our good heals and such, but they have access to enough of their own decent heals and stuff they need for crafting other things. You can also set them up to store items. It's not the most advanced thing in the world, but say I want this girl to go around and get all of the seeds. I can find this and see what I have, like a named bench somewhere or box, usually bench related. So we want her to put it in the granary. How can I do that? Oh, there we go. Store items, that's why I can't do that. So that's our fireplace. We've got small chests, So I can get her to find, say, I want her to go around and get all of the fertilizer, all of the clay probably, and put it all in this chest. So we're going to say clay and then an unlimited amount. So any clay that's not in that chest, she'll go around and put in that chest in theory. If you want her to prioritize doing that over something else, you can simply move these around. Like a lot of these don't exist anymore. So I can actually get rid of them. And then I can move this one to the top. I can do a very similar thing if they happen to be managing workbenches. If I want this guy to prioritize the potting bench, I simply move that up, but I actually want him to prioritize the powered cutting wheel. This is also another really easy way to set them up to a task, very similar to doing the D setting on the D key when you're looking at a bench. So I want them at the brewing tank and I want them to make a whole bunch of mead. I want 200. And if you were to say like infinite, he'll just always go and make that there. Save that. And then multi-pass is going to go and do that. He'll go and get the various different ingredients, come over to this keg, and that will be there. I won't be able to cancel it. It'll just come back up because it is still here. You can pause it from here if you don't want them to do it, but he will just start doing it again. And as you can see, we do often have a bit of a war over some of the benches. Like this guy is like, I will make the mead. You won't, buddy. And he also steals stuff all the time from some of the benches. So occasionally you do have to pick them up and put them down again and reset everything. The benches, not the thralls. Otherwise you end up with thieving thralls that won't put stuff away, which is a little bit annoying. Occasionally there are places you don't want them to go, especially when they're on that auto mining path. I don't want them necessarily going outside and mining everything. At the moment they're allowed because they're strong enough, but you can hold E and you can allow them or disallow them from going outside. They only use that gate down there because it is more patrolled, and if they are to get attacked by anything, the dudes will notice it. And that will also stop these little buggers from causing chaos and opening the doors. Also, you can now harvest stuffs directly from the monkey storage. Summon the monkeys if you've lost your monkeys, usually works. They like to get caught underneath stuff still. We have more monkeys, but they don't belong to me, so my tribe mate has to summon them, and they'll eventually store stuff in here. If you are sick of your tames wandering around everywhere and causing chaos, and you don't want to make a whole bunch of the taming posts, I don't know where mine's gone, right here. Hitching post. My feed troughs are over here. This llama gets to wander around, and that's pretty close still to these guys, and I just put a little fence around them and they no longer wander everywhere. But if I am to ride one, I can simply just walk out and walk back in. It's really nice. They tend to just stay in this little area, which I love because they'll often block doorways and block the auto pathing of these dudes because everybody wants to hang out by the fire. Usually the monkeys are hanging out in here too, but I recently rescued them from being stuck. If you haven't already, I highly recommend getting the old ancient table from doing different dungeons. You do this one here, it's pretty easy. This one here, they also drop the portals, which are really fun. So you have a teleporter straight from your house. You can go to any of the different locations where you unlock a portal like here, so you can go to this iron mine really easily. It is poisonous there though, that's why I'm making some antidotes. There are other ones around the map which are also fairly poisonous, and ones up here that are less poisonous but more nuclear. But even if you don't fight the ender bosses, you will need some corrosive tanks to fight them though, and more than most likely actually the first dungeon you will come across them is this holy ruin over here, as I believe that's where the mask, actually the little quests up here in the corner actually take you. Well, there's a couple of benefits to them. You can reprint your tribesmen if you get this part, which is actually not always from the same dungeons. You will definitely get this part pretty easily, but this part's a little bit harder. Ooh. Stop climbing me. But you can, if you have saved your tribesmen and depending on your server settings, you can reprint them if they die. It takes about half an hour, which is pretty nice. We've got 8 slots. I will do a separate video, but you can also copy their DNA and absorb all of their coolness. You will no longer be able to copy them anymore, and if they die, sayonara. That's why I'm going to do a different video on all of that. But I highly recommend saving your favorite dudes. I tend to switch out a couple of mine when I take them out. So Twinkat's not always saved because she is predominantly a crafty farmy person, but I did recently take her out harvesting, so I saved her just in case she was going to die. But some of the other features is being able to make these energy gathering crystals, or sippy cups is what I call them because energy sippies. It's much easier than spamming the sunstones with not enough energy to get back your energy. You simply take one little swig and it will fill your energy back up to however much you need and leave the rest for the run. If you have been doing some of those dungeons and you've gotten some of these diamond shaped crystals. It is also where you add them into your mask. So you simply drag them over if you've leveled up your mask somewhat. A pretty decent one to have there, so I'll keep that. We tend to change them out depending on what we are doing. This mask in particular gives me better ability to have thralls or followers, so a lot more HP and stuff once leveled up for them. This mask gives me a better ability at not dying, so I'll get a lot more HP when I am downed. I am rezzed much quicker. It's pretty cool when you're out fighting bosses. It's a bit of work doing those dungeons to get these, but super worth it. Again, another video, but there is that option. But if you've been wondering what to do with the cruddy mask that you have gotten potentially from doing this ancient ruin over here, and if you've done it a few times, you would have built up a couple of the beginner masks. If you've already got the one that you have already, you don't need that one. You can also dismantle them at this table, as well as those diamonds. We simply go over here and we can go to uncraft, and that's going to give us a bunch of yellow crystals that way. The higher the level of the diamond, the higher the amount we're going to get back, potentially. And you can also dismantle things like blue crystals for the green crystals. And it is also the place where you construct the portal once you have all of those portal parts. I highly recommend collecting every one that you have because you can place them at many places, have farming locations super easily. Only costs 100 mask energy to teleport even to main portals with this portal. So that's really nice. If you're like me and you love learning all of the things, you might not have that many points left for learning other stuff. And the higher up you get, where's a good example? The more it costs to unlock, essentially. So I can't unlock absolutely everything. I basically have none of the bronze stuff unlocked, so I can't make any of that anymore. It's really easy to reset your technology. The first one is free and then it goes up by a couple every time. I've done it 3 or 4 times now, and it's pretty cheap. Once you get a little bit better at life, farming things like the saber cat and the frog, they're pretty easy. The saber cat, especially if you do not use any status effects, so bleed and stuff, that make it raw. If you use things like hammers and blades that don't do a lot of bleed, like great swords, and don't use the moves that do bleed, you will kill him so much easier, trust me. And he's a great source of the hides that you need for making some of the better armor, as well as those crystals. And the frog is pretty easy as long as you have a couple of poison protection mods and a few like antidotes and stuff. Just avoid his little froggy bits. That's why we've done the Frog of Doom. None of the other ones. But on your adventures, you might come across the ancient tablets. Sometimes they're a little bit hard to find because they're literally just on the walls of temples, these ones. Other times you can actually find them on the top of the pyramid. If you walk up the pyramid and then down the side on all of them, you will find a fancy ancient tablet. They're slightly different. They give a lot of XP, like a lot. The harder the area, the more XP. Like one we found yesterday somewhere over here gave me like 60,000. So that was awesome. Mind you, we are on a boosted server. They also give you from 2 to 3 knowledge points. So that's really nice if you go around and unlock them all. Also, speaking of XP, doing those quests up in the corner, excellent XP early game, even mid game. Harvesting things like metal nodes, the salt, the sulfur, the nitrate, the coal, they're all fairly easy to get to areas, the iron, any type of metal. But if you can get up into the snow, mining the crystal, OP. Specifically, if you can get up to the big cave, which only has elite spiders. And I say only because if you can get up there, you should be able to fight some elite spiders. Take a good hammer with you. I'm pretty sure we were like, only had iron ones when we first went there. Smash them up. You get a lot of shell, rare shell, premium shell from there, a lot of poison. But it's amazing XP and you will need it for crafting some steel stuff as well as the meteors. I have a whole video on there, and that's where you also catch some kitties really easily and get around quickly. But ice is fairly decent and it's pretty easy to get to some of these teleporters that's really close to the ice, or right near here. It's not unlocked yet. There's also another ice pond that's super easy. If you don't have things like the chill proof mods from doing various different things around dungeons and whatnot, or the ability to be able to craft them, don't have any hot cacao or excitants, it's actually not that cold at this barracks, which is why we have our camp right here. It's actually still in the tundra area and not fully in alpines, rather, not fully in the tundra. There are also a couple of outcast barbarian camps around. You can kill them and get this armor, which is going to be iron. You can pick them off slowly from out the front. If you're a little bit lower of the level, you might die, but you can do it. And if you get all the way into the center and fight the boss, you can get the chance of getting a red set or gold set, depending on the boss that you fight. You don't always get every single bit, but this is what we wore to fight the mammoth. Because we have not tamed found a craftsman there that has given us the recipe to craft it ourselves. And also getting up the actual material to craft it can be a bit of a pain, because if they see you, they empty their boxes and it's a whole thing. So that is one way to get it up. Put a durability mod on it, and then you'll be able to go mine a lot safer and a lot less coldly up there. And that really goes for anything. If you happen to be in your best beast bone armor, preferably the legendary, you can go to somewhere that's a little bit better than where you can go. So like the plunderers, and they'll potentially drop. So don't go to the plunderers and beast bone. You want to probably be in bronze, but they'll drop better grade stuff than you probably. But you can get better stuff at these barracks, like etc. You definitely want to be utilizing a lot of these different food buffs, because they're pretty dang handy other than just filling up your food and water. I can get extra attack. My favorite is using the fried rice steak, especially when I'm running around in the cold, because it's slowly regenerating my HP. Nice. But one of my favorite buffs, especially when farming, to have on me is something like cooked potato, which will give me a 40 max load, or fried potato bun, which will give me 80 max load. We also have regular potato, 20 max load, and they often drop off different followers as you're killing them. Now, there are so many other tips and tricks in between there. Hopefully I'll make a tips and tricks 2 and 3 video as well, with various different levels of expertise in there, to keep your eyes peeled for that. But I do have a whole bunch of other guides on farming and whatnot on this game. If you're interested in those, do check them out. If you found this informative, smash that like button, and if you're not already, consider subscribing. It means a bunch. I'm almost at 7k, which is pretty crazy. Never thought anyone would even watch my videos at all. Love you guys, so crazy. Anyway, until next time, happy tips and tricksing. I hope these helped a bunch, and until next time, have an excellent day, evening, night, morning, whatever it may be, whatever you may be. Have a good one.